switch the computer. All right, so everyone's checking in. Welcome everybody to this session on electromagnetic radiation. I hope to be able to share some tips for or reasons why to reduce your exposure, particularly for children. If you've got any parents listening in, and I'd love to give you some simple tips that you could reduce your exposure by up to 90%, and then we can do some tapping, having possibly ruined your day sharing the information I've got. But anyway. All right, so we've got, okay, those on laptops, is everybody working on Wi-Fi, or have we got anyone who's on a, yes, everyone's on Wi-Fi, no one's on an Ethernet cabled computer without Wi-Fi except me. We could change that. Okay, so we've got laptops, iPhones, Esther's on the move driving. Thanks so much for joining in. Okay. Let me share my screen and right, we'll get to this. So those of you who know me know that I'm focused on being the spokesperson, I guess, for children and the unborn child, and working with birth and newborn new families. I wonder if I dare to just play this. So, I can see you, but presumably you can't see me. Is that right?
Can see you.
What? You can see me? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, right. I might just do something about that. I can't now. Okay. Right, we're living through an electronic technical revolution, the pace of which is unprecedented. We have a love affair with mobile phones, computers, smart technology, and it's being sold to us, and it's fun, convenient, and addictive. And I'm going to, oh my goodness, I've got more people coming, and I don't know how to do this while I'm in a screen share. One person is waiting. Shasha, are you able to invite people in or not? Is it only me?
No, Rebecca, I can't. You have to let them in, but once they come in, they'll be able to see what we're looking at.
Okay, so I'm pressing escape to get, oh, it's not working. Right. It's not doing what I practiced yesterday. My screen sharing is paused. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to get out. Oh, phew, okay. Right. You're going to have to forgive me then, and I'm not going to play this, and otherwise I will be faffing around. So, moving on. Yeah, so we're beginning to voice concerns around the time children are spending on screens and the behavioural privacy and safeguarding issues of that. I think parents, I know I'm beginning to get there, feel increasingly conflicted navigating technology and screen time with children, but few people are discussing or even seem to be aware of the adverse biological effects from the radiation that these devices are emitting. And that's what I want to focus on today, is just to shine a light on these radio frequencies, which are microwaves that our Wi-Fi and mobiles are functioning on. So you might rightly think that if they're being marketed to us all this time, that that they must be safe and that we're all being protected by the various bodies and organisations who are supposed to be looking out for us. But sadly, that is not exactly the case. So there are many scientists, researchers, doctors who are researching EMFs, which stand for electromagnetic fields, but I give the title EMR, which is electromagnetic radiation. There's a lot of abbreviations in this. They're voicing concerns. So our exposure guidelines, I just want to give you a little bit on this. They are set by the Federal Communications Commission, advised by the the IEEE, which are engineers only, no biological people on there at all. And they govern them, they work in America, and in Europe it's the International Commission on Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection, ICNIRP. So I just want to give you a little background here. We are still working on exposure guidelines, not safety guidelines, exposure guidelines that are based on thermal effects only, set in the 1990s based on guidance going back even as early as the 1980s. So they have, this letter is in response from the Environmental Protection Agency, where the underlined bits I'll pick out. These guidelines aim to protect against injury caused by acute exposures that result in tissue heating, i.e. your tissue heating up, getting burnt, electric shock and burn. They do not apply to chronic non-thermal exposure situations, which is what we are experiencing today. And the generalization by many that the guidelines protect human beings from harm by any or all mechanisms is not justified. So the Environmental Protection Agency, they were advising the FCC when they set the guidelines back in 1996. In Europe, they were set in 1998, and that is what we're still using today. I want to just give you a little snapshot of how they tested our phones, and all our phones function on radio frequencies, and thereafter came the Wi-Fi and everything else. They're based on the same testing. So back in the 1990s, meet Sam. He was a plastic head based on some paratroopers, way larger than most adults, and they were measuring. He was filled with water and stuff, liquid, and they were testing the phones at a distance from the fake head for heating effects only, and they were looking at the tissue heating up by averaged over 1 kilogram by 1 degree for 6 minutes. I just want to pause there. 6 minutes. How long does the average phone call take? How long are we keeping our Wi-Fi on? So this was from a single source at a distance. The guidelines don't account for non-thermal effects, and thousands of peer-reviewed published studies indicating biological changes at the non-thermal effects, but even very low effects. So these are shortened to ELFs, extremely low frequencies. They don't account for body contact exposure, and children are using these things. They are often putting it to their heads, as do adults, but children particularly. If you look in the small print buried deep in your safety guidelines in your iPads, phones, and so on, they will say that these devices need to be held 5 to 25 millimeter distance from your body, depending on which one you have. They're only looking at, they don't account for peak exposures. So they are averaging it, which is, the whole picture is useful to have both, but the peak exposures are what are considered to be giving the biological impact. So if you think that your body is mostly water, and you have, intermittent things bombarding it, and the body never knows when it's going to come or how heavy, or it's always changing. But that is what it's those peaks that are causing the biological effects. It's not looking at chronic or long-term exposures. Certainly not the cumulative effects of constant and multiple sources all day and all night. And in fact, those were considered for only 30 minutes by the FCC. The specific absorption rate, shortened to SAR, is what the guidelines are based on. It's kind of like a false thing. It doesn't actually mean anything when you actually look at the biological effects, but that's what these guidelines are based on, is the amount of radiation that's absorbed into the tissue and heating it up. So it's based on that model of SAM. It certainly doesn't account for smaller heads of children and fetuses, nor the electrical properties and tissue densities within the body that can generate hotspots in live brains and bodies. So children, this is the SAR for a 10-year-old, children can absorb twice the amount of microwave radiation than adults. And into their brain and 10 times into the amount of the bone marrow, which is where you're making red blood cells, oxygen for the body, and is part of the immune system. Many of our phones nowadays are exceeding even the high guidelines by several times over. So I just want to give a little snapshot of the explosion of mobile masks to give you some idea of proliferation. So this is the numbers above 2G in 1996. So over 25 years, 10 years later, 2006, 2016, we've got to this, and 5G is upon us. And I will get to that. I know there are questions on that. This is the guy responsible for this. Basically, 5G is actually, they say, untested, but I actually, in preparing for this, dug out a CIA document that was back in 1977, showing I can't find the word, a translation of Russian research, where so they actually do know the biological harm of 5G and millimeter waves, but the general message out there is that this is untested, which is definitely the case as far as the industry is concerned. They have no idea of what they're letting loose here, but they're determined to. So as we see, this is Tom Wheeler announcing it to the industry. They're interested in raking in billions of dollars. They're not interested in waiting for biological studies. Anything goes as far as he's concerned. And they want everything to be microchipped for the Internet of Things. So where everyone will be connected and traceable. Enough on that. I will answer questions on that later. So I'm aware that many of you practitioners will be working with people with chronic conditions and various strange symptoms. So I just wanted to give you an outline of the rise in chronic conditions here, all of which are linked to electromagnetic radiation, and some symptoms as well. So we've got a rise in neurological conditions, we've got a rise in cancers, we've got a rise in psychological illnesses, autoimmune, allergies, dementia, diabetes, obesity, thyroid dysfunction, epilepsy, and behavioural and learning disabilities in children. ADHD and autism seems to be going through the roof. 1 in 3 adults worldwide have multiple chronic conditions, which is very, very shocking. The conditions associated with electromagnetic radiation, I wonder, just a hands up here, does anybody actually recognise any of these in themselves? I know I've experienced brain fog, definitely. I thought it was sort of baby brain, but having weaned myself off all of this, I definitely know that's lifted, and it's retrospective. With low signal where I'm at here, when I was using the smartphone still on with poor signal, I did actually get heart palpitations, dizziness. Literally just had to put my head on the floor. And I think many of us are feeling fatigue as the exposures are going up and up. But let's just have a look to give you an example of the correlations. And I know correlation doesn't amount to cause, but there is a lot of evidence to show the links. So this is the rise in autism. These are American statistics, but it applies elsewhere. 1979 to 2009. Bear in mind that the explosion of the mobile technology and the radiation wrapped up in the 1990s. And that's when we started seeing court cases linking brain tumours to mobile phones. So 1975 to 2009, this is the curve on autism in America. And I have to take a look at statistical wireless proliferation too. Now, when I was looking into glyphosate, not to confuse the issue, but I was looking at very similar graphs for virtually every single chronic condition, and they are both working in very similar ways. It's not one negates the other. It's not like these illnesses are because of one or the other, and we can argue the toss about it. The fact of the matter is these illnesses are happening in direct correlation with each of those, and the biological pathways have been shown for both glyphosate and for and GMOs and for wireless radiation. So 5-fold increase in autism in the 90s in the UK, and I can tell you it's gone up a steeper curve since.
Rebecca, sorry to interrupt. I think some of us are having trouble seeing what you're trying to show us.
Size-wise?
Yeah, I'm stuck at a slide which says why and how to reduce exposures to radiation.
Oh,
Very early on. I haven't seen
else?
anything else. And apparently Janet's got a black screen. So I don't know about anyone else, but...
Oh my goodness. Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you for...
Yeah, we've just got the front,
Oh, gosh.
front one that you put up, Lovey.
Yeah, I've got that slide as well.
Can you see it now?
Yeah, I think when you tried to let someone into the meeting, that it stayed as that.
Because nobody else came into the meeting.
Okay, I'm just going to start it again then. I wasn't able to revive it, so let's just... Do you see my PowerPoint now?
Yeah.
Yes? Yes?
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me know. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, right. So you've got the blurb. We'll just quickly whiz through. That was the letter from the Environment Protection Agency. This is the testing and what it doesn't account for, the amount of radiation that the children are receiving, the explosion in mobile masts worldwide over the last 25 years, announcement of 5G, the chronic conditions. Let's take that in. And conditions associated with, yes, Janet.
Sorry, Rebecca. I just wanted to say I'm now, I put it in the chat box, I'm now quite frightened because my grandson is coming to an age where he wants a mobile phone. So I shall be absolutely glued to the replay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you giving me notice that you've got to dash. So,
yeah.
All right. Any questions? All right.
Okay. Thank you. Lots of love.
Bye.
You're doing a really good thing here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's hard. I find it very hard to share this information, which is why I'm interested in bringing the tapping to it, because the last thing that's useful is to share this and then have people stuck in overwhelm and fear.
No, we need to get this into schools and we need to get these to parents, and because I don't think that they have any idea what parents wouldn't put their children in jeopardy if they knew that this was the extent to which what you've hinted at. Anyway, I must go, my darling. Thank you very, very much.
Bye.
Bless you.
So hi Esther, we're in the picture now. So just to catch up then, this was the graph for the autism 1975 to 2009, and continues on a steeper curve since then. Compare that to the wireless proliferation in the US, and you get some idea of the correlation. So back in 2011, or 2002 and 2011, so let's just stick with the radio frequencies because that's what I'm concentrating on. 2011, it was listed as a possible human carcinogen. The WHO are still arguing for these 1998 standards to be continued, and harmonization. I'm all about harmonies, with my harmony singing and everything else, and bringing EFT and matrix to bring emotional harmony. But yeah, interesting use of words, as is smart in the whole smart movement. Anyhow, so the scientists, many of whom were actually on that board deciding that categorization, have since realized that it should be at least a group 2A, if not a group 1, carcinogenic to humans, like smoking and asbestos. So I'm going to leave you with the question: if you knew that the radio frequencies from the wireless radiation from your phone was akin to smoking, would you give that to your child? Would you want that in your schools? I'll just leave that there. So yes, these studies have linked the most, obviously it's linked to if you're using the phone against your head. Brain, vestibular nerves, salivary gland tumours, increased brain cancer from mobile phone use, and breast cancer, where people are storing their phone in their bra, colon cancer, where it's in the back pocket for blokes, and a lot of infertility and cancer of the testes if it's anywhere near your groin. Front pocket. Brain tumours now account for more deaths among children and those under 40 than any other cancer. I'm not going to dash onto this. I just want to say that a lot of my research, I don't take anything for granted, and I dig. I've been at this for nearly 3 years now. This was an interesting study, report, drawing together over 2,300 research reports of military test and repeat data. And I'm just going to whip through. You're not going to read this, but it's too many slides. But it really does. There are many varied biological effects, and the argument for why the industry can say there's no clear evidence is because of these very many effects. But you practitioners know the intelligence of the cell and the cell membrane, and that we're electromagnetic beings living in an electromagnetic world, and our cells function with electrical charge. So in 2013, Dr. Martin Paul, his groundbreaking research basically showed a mechanism by which all these different biological effects occur. And these are, in short, to do with the cell's voltage-gated calcium channels. So it's very complex, and I'm not even going to attempt to go into it. But you can look up his work, and he's very vocal and speaking out on conference in September in London on 5G. But he has, sort of bottled it down to these 8 pathophysiological effects: neurological damage, hormonal disruption, including melatonin depletion, which is crucial for, if you don't have melatonin, you don't have enough serotonin, so the feel-good hormone, so hence we've got depression on the rise. Melatonin is, of course, helps defend against cancer. Oxidative stress, that is a cause of cancer and other aging and all sorts of other things. DNA breaks and germline mutations. So basically, if the changes are made there, you're talking about an epigenetic effect. Apoptosis, for those who don't know, is cell death. Infertility is just a massive. He calls it an existential problem now, because it's it's that great. So I'm just going to whip through these. To lower fertility, you can take a look on that. But he is saying that reproduction has dropped well below replacement levels in every technologically advanced country, with the exception of one. And my studies have shown it's reasonable to estimate that it would only take 5 years for technologically advanced countries to suffer such a catastrophic drop in human reproduction that it wouldn't be able to recover. Like I say, I did say I might ruin your day. Neurological, neuropsychiatric effects. These are the kind of things that I'm sure doctors are being presented with, and maybe you as practitioners are being presented with, these strange symptoms that they could be put down to all sorts of different things, but they are known effects of microwave radiation. Cellular damage, apoptosis, oxidative endocrine effects. Yeah, and he puts this all down to these voltage-gated calcium channels allowing too much calcium into the cells, and then that triggers this mechanism that he explains. And I'm doing it by memory. Pathway that he says underlie links to all of these other biological effects.
Brief reminder, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Asked me to remind you on timing. Another 3 minutes.
Thank you. Just a very quick word on ADHD and autism, with behavioural problems and learning disabilities just massively on the rise. I mean, I wasn't aware of this when I was younger, but I barely can talk to anybody without somebody having a child or knowing somebody with a child who has this. And I just think we are failing our children. And we need to wake up to this. It's all there. I wonder if I can grab it. I will put it in the comments. There's a wonderful book. I've gone complete blank even on who wrote it. I will 2 seconds. I can't get the key to my cupboard. EMF Freedom, it's called. Dr. Marie, I think it's Marie Claude. She goes into so much detail, and for anybody who's interested in this and truly understanding it, particularly from the chronic illness perspective and the child and fetal perspective, she explains it brilliantly. Yeah, what's going on in the body to understand why we've got these presenting conditions. I really just very quickly look at why are children more susceptible. So their brain, body, central nervous system are still developing, the cells dividing and differentiating faster than ours. They have critical windows of development where environmental exposures can have critical effects. Their myelin sheath isn't developed, so what this attacks the myelin sheath, hence the neurodegenerative conditions, but theirs isn't even developed in the first place. Until it's not complete until they're 22. So this is linked to MS, the slowing down of the transmission of electrical impulses along nerve cells, because the myelin is the insulating layer around nerve cells. This is back to the absorption rate, which we know to be not the whole picture, but in and of itself, it's fairly alarming when you think how far the penetration can go in 5 or 10-year-old compared to the adult. And of course, we're not even thinking about fetal exposure when laptops and phones are used near the tummy, pregnant tummy. They have more water content, so that increases penetration and affects bone density, bone marrow are particularly affected by electromagnetic radiation. I'm just going to say EMR from now on because it takes too long. They've already got an immune system that's immature, and this decreases the red and white blood cells and oxidized platelets. The blood-brain barrier, the intestinal barrier, and other barriers of other internal organs are made more permeable. This has an impact if you've got vaccines with heavy metals, or you've got toxicity in your water or food supply. This is all why we're seeing such a massive rise in the in Alzheimer's and dementia and so on, because toxins are getting into the brain that shouldn't be. And of course, children are now seeing conception to grave exposures. When we were growing up, we didn't have that. So just briefly, there are many studies, interesting studies to show the effects of prenatal exposure on not only the neonate, but even like children at school age developing autism. We're talking impaired memory, behavioural changes, hyperactivity, behavioural problems, speech delays, that sort of thing. And we're also, birth defects is in the list of all these. So just briefly, a laptop is not for laps. So whether you've got Wi-Fi on or not, you've got an electromagnetic field, a magnetic field coming from the laptop, which is extremely harmful. The exposures on the lap are harmful to the sperm, to the baby if the woman's pregnant, and just really not to be used on your lap. I'm going to whiz down and see if there's anything else that I want to, just briefly, in case you are getting people who are coming with electrohypersensitivity, which is on the rise. This is a projection, and I read today in 2015 the UK figures for electrohypersensitivity were around about 3 to 5%. There will be more than that now, but it's arguable that there are more, because we don't understand what these various symptoms, we don't know necessarily to link it to this. For anyone who wants to dig into this, this is from PowerWatch, a good source for information if you want to know about the voltages on from the different devices. Just briefly on this, the distance is everything, and so if you have Wi-Fi, laptop on the lap, you know, you're looking at greater exposure than a Wi-Fi router at a distance. If you have a baby monitor emitted from the baby, we're up to 2 volts per meter on that. You compare that to a mobile mast 150 meters from your home, it's a similar exposure. So we really want to be encouraging anybody that we know who's pregnant or got babies, do not put these devices in your, do not have a wireless baby monitor. But there are all sorts of things being marketed to, so just outrageous things like, you know, nappies with sensor, Wi-Fi sensors. We've got the Owlet sock there, so you never need to check that your baby, a device will tell you when your baby's nappy needs changing, and that communicate with your smartphone via something else. We're looking at the smart home, and it's not good news, folks. It's really not. So we've got synergistic effects here, heavy metal toxicity, multiple chemical sensitivity. I'm sure many of you know that goes hand in hand with electrohypersensitivity. Molds have synergistic effect, co-infections like Lyme's and lupus. I want to just let you know about a course that Nick Pino, investigative health journalist, has put together, and I paid something like £397 for that, but I printed off this module from the course that is, it's specifically, the course is designed for practitioners, health practitioners, doctors, to educate them so that they can actually recognise symptoms. And currently he has a shortened version. If anyone's interested, there will be a much cheaper, briefer version of that available this week. I can send you a link. But if you did want to invest the next time that he opens it up into this course, it covers all the modules, including 5G. And this is, he's put together a questionnaire for health professionals, and this is a really useful document on how to use that. It goes through each and every symptom and disease condition, and explain why and how the EMFs relate to that. Never enough time. I want to tell you about a website, ehtrust.org. Write that down. So Dr. Deborah Davey is an absolute leader in the field on this. She's also speaking at a 5G conference in London in September 28th. There is a mountain of resources in that website, not only to educate yourself, but also to be able to actually print off and hand out to people. So I did want to tap, but I also wanted to give you simple tips. So does anybody have any questions, and guide me on what you would like me to spend 5 minutes on? Should we do tips? Yeah. All right. Do you know what? I was going to play. Okay. I've got you all to my, I can't see. I'm going to pop you over there. So, okay. This will just give you some indicator. I wanted to do my own thing, and I freaked myself out last night because I bought my own meter, another £400 toy, to measure my own phone, which was quite something. But this will give you an idea of an iPad and what is actually coming off it, and it divides it out. So with the safety instructions to the left there. So turning on the acoustometer. Nothing's on at the moment, nothing's emitting. The iPad is off, Wi-Fi on the iPad is off. You're enabling the wireless router on the screen. Okay, so that's the Wi-Fi on the iPad coming on. Going first. And it's maxing out up to 6 volts per meter is peak. And that's the thing about the internet. It's even a minute meter. It's quite an iPhone 14 transmission. YouTube video. Zoom on a little bit. If you're watching this on a laptop or any device with your Wi-Fi on coming at you through the screen, okay, so that lowest threshold of this meter is 0.02 volts per meters. Biological effects occur at 0.0006 volts per meter. The maximum on that was 6 volts per meter. It's measuring up to 8, but on the peaks you only get to see 6. So does that demonstrate at all? And is anybody surprised by any of that? Oh, I think it's really powerful when you can actually hear and see the measurement. I mean, see the measurements are only useful if you actually know what you're comparing them to, and those measurements are within the guidelines. If anybody's going to be picky on this, they're within the guidelines. The ICN IRP guidelines for the general public on radio frequencies is 1,000 microwatts per square centimetre. Yeah, you really have to know your decimal points. I did all the maths last night. I'm not going to even try now. But when you compare it to what actually has been shown over and over again to cause biological effects, then those standards they're not up to much. I know there were questions about 5G, but I would love to do some tapping. Do you want to feed back to me on any thoughts? Yes, Shasha. Shall I stop?
Yeah, some of it's surprising, of course. Some of it I knew. But I wanted to ask you a couple of things. There are things you can buy that are said to be a protector for the whole electrical circuit in your space, be it a house, be it a flat, that you plug in. Do those work? What are they doing, and do they work?
The honest answer is I don't think I'm qualified to answer that. I've certainly, these are questions we need to be asking of the experts. Those experts that I have heard answer these questions are reluctant to be drawn on that. What I think you have, it's really important when you take any mitigation strategy that you measure the before and after. So like I wanted to show you that in terms of the things that you can do, because that shows you that if you just turn off what you're not using, it stops. And so rather than have that exposure and then be thinking that you can put another thing in that might be neutralizing whatever they claim to do, better to learn the ways to actually turn those things off. I wanted to leave you with this one last, oh, where is it? Where is it? Yeah, this is my top tip. Reduce exposure, raise resilience. So the more resilient we are, the more we can combat these exposures. But I have to say that the layering of it all now is just, with 5G2, is just going to go, is insane. It's going to go through the roof. So it means that whatever self-care protocol that you have or can get into, so much the better. But reducing exposure, I tell you what, when I first bought this, day one, I had this obsession about these mobile masts on top in the main car park behind the high street in my local town. And I'm measuring things at home here, and we have a really low environment here, hardly measured anything at all until you actually turn something on. And I took it into town. And I was expecting the measurements for the mobile masts at reasonable proximity, you know, in the playground, right where it's shining onto, to be quite high. And they were quite high. You wouldn't want to sleep there. You wouldn't want to spend all day, every day there. But to, you know, pop into town, that's doable. What was interesting was the mobile phones that we carry in our pockets, that we hold to our heads. I tell you what, these last night, they were just jammed up to the peak max constantly. We have control over those things. We can turn our Wi-Fi off at night. We can choose to Ethernet cable our laptop, and that is not as easy as just turning a switch off. But I want to show you, we are still on screen share. So look up here. Can you see my cursor? Can you see my cursor up here? So it's the same on the iPad, it's the same on your phone, it's the same on your computer screen. That if you are not needing Wi-Fi, let's say you're working on a document, even if you're not Ethernet cabled, or you've downloaded something onto your iPad, or you actually only need your phone for an emergency phone call, and you don't need Wi-Fi on all the time, you can just turn it off. Equally, the click of a button, you can turn it on. Now, I haven't got a router here. It'd be quite interesting to measure that. I'm going to turn it off. There we go. So even if you are Ethernet cabling, you need to know to turn that off. If you have a BT router, even if you choose to Ethernet cable, you will have a public Wi-Fi on emitting as well. So increasingly, your routers are not only getting stronger and more powerful and more multi-directional, but they are also carrying two signals, two IP addresses, one for your house, one for the general public. So even if you chose to opt out of Wi-Fi and Ethernet cable and turn the Wi-Fi off, which you have to do in your settings on the computer, then you still might have the public Wi-Fi emitting. We made that mistake until we had the home surveyed by a professional building biologist. So on your phones, on your iPads, you have Bluetooth, you have the data, internet data, and you have Wi-Fi, and you have mobile data. So choose what is it that you want. Can you just put it on flight mode and make sure that the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth are actually off, because those can easily get override. You can still be on flight mode and still have, let me show you. Okay, so I'm on flight mode. I don't know if you can see up here. I'm on flight mode. But I can can you see? I don't know. I can turn Wi-Fi on. There's nothing to connect to here, but that will be on. It will be emitting. even though it still will say flight mode. Equally, I have, yeah, now it's searching. I also want to show you on here. Let's turn my meter on, you'll be able to hear it. Okay. So if you go into the Wi-Fi settings on your phone, you probably can't see this, can you?
I think we all know our Wi-Fi settings, though. I think we can follow that.
But the wheel that turns round is when you are getting the bursts. It probably isn't showing on the screen. You'll get a little wheel going round while it looks, and it looks every few seconds, which is why if you can turn the Wi-Fi off if you don't need it, turn it off. And then you are reducing your exposure considerably. Same with Bluetooth. And the location is also something good to be having, especially if you're taking pictures and uploading to Facebook. It's good to have location off, you're not being tracked. Really easy for the wrong people to get to know where your children go to school and work out the photographs. Anyway, we are out of time, except that we started late. So any more questions, Shasha?
Sorry to be the one, but can I ask, if you're in flight mode, can you receive calls?
If you're on flight mode, you can't receive calls, no. In my personal experience, I have found it completely liberating. I realise it's not practical for everybody, but I have found it completely liberating to actually have it on flight mode almost all the time. I give my landline out and I check. I choose to check before I tell you. I'm a bit like a smoker who now doesn't smoke. My smartphone was an extension of my arm, and I had panic attacks if it wasn't in reach. And I see children now in the playground with only one hand free because they're always holding a phone. And I have found it liberating to be able to just put it on flight mode and choose when I check. And it doesn't matter really whether you check 100 times a day or twice a day. I realise that's not practical for everybody all of the time, but to put yourself back in control is incredibly powerful. And knowing that is not then, you're running it, and it's not running you, and it's not radiating you and your kids while it's on. The other thing, Esther, I hate to say this whilst you're driving, but if you're in a car on the move and your phone is on or your iPad is enabled, your device is constantly looking for the next mast. So it's a two-way communication. It's the mast is sending a signal out, but your device is constantly searching for the nearest signal. So as you're on the move, it's not only connecting to one, it's trying very hard to search and connect to more. And as you go, drive on the M25 now, and it's every few hundred yards, it seems to be another mast. Each one will give you an extra added burst. Add to that you are in effectively a Faraday cage. You're in a metal object. Same goes for lifts or trains, planes, anything that is metal, and you are bouncing. The microwaves bounce, so they will just bounce off metal, and so you're massively increasing your exposure to you and your family by driving with these devices on in a car, train, plane, in a lift, and on the move. So there, like I say, all these little things, it's just a tap of a button to be able to choose to turn something on or off. And when it comes to children, I just think if we could realise that these iPads and these smartphones, like there's this horrifying number, like what is it, 75%, I think I'm right in saying 75% of under fours, or 75% of 4-year-olds in America have their own smartphone or are using it on a daily basis. And I'm pretty certain that most people don't know these tricks. Yeah, I don't need to say any more on that. We just need to get the word out. What else can I tell you to keep yourself safer? So smart meters, does anybody have a smart meter?
Yeah.
You have a smart meter. Okay, smart meters are a really unsmart idea. They are being marketed to save you money, and to actually they're just saving the utility company money from sending people out. They are a surveillance device, and they are emitting this pulse radiation. Don't know what's going on there, sorry. If you've got one and you don't mind doing your own meter reading, and you can persuade your company to take it out and go back to analog, do. Shasha, I know in France they're making it mandatory, aren't they? So, okay, here's a resource if you've got pen and paper. I'll try and pop these things in the chat afterwards, but if in the UK, but you can use it, stopsmartmeters.org, is that right? stopsmartmeters.org.uk. That for smart meters is a wealth of information, and in America you can go to In Power. Josh Del Sol is launching a 5G conference in September too, but he is the leading light in America on smart meters. Brilliant film. So here, withdraw consent, and that will take you to a brilliantly put together document that will outline to you and to your utility company, it's a notice of liability, all these reasons on health grounds, on privacy grounds, on environmental grounds, because of course this is all harming our environment and the animals and birds and insects in it. All the reasons, many, many, many reasons why not to have a smart meter. So I will leave that with you as your homework. That's a really helpful letter. I literally, in my flat in London, before I moved, I posted that up at the door, so that when you get these harassing people coming to the door, and of course the people selling it to you, even on the phone, they are very pushy and they don't know anything about this, and they'll use every trick in the book to get you, because the governments have decreed, and this environment, this is the thing, I'm just going to say this, because I am the first person to want to do something about climate change and to do something for the environment, but we need to wake up, because all of this is destroying the environment and contributing to climate change, and 5G will just even more so. But the reason these smart meters and so on, 5G, is all being rolled out is in the guise of helping the environment and meeting climate change targets. And this is why I think that governments are feeling a bit, not powerless, but they're signing up to it because they have to, like in, we're under the EU still here. And so it's decreed from on high that this is the way to go in order to do the right thing for the environment. And it's not, it's destroying the environment. And we know that it's harming bees, and robins' navigation systems are affected because all these creatures are functioning on different magnetic frequencies, and it's microwave radiation, even though it's non-ionizing radiation. We know from our laptops and our phones, if we have them too long, that they heat up. With 5G, just last thing on environment and climate, please go to 5gspaceappeal.com, and there is a lot of information on 5G, and I learned stuff there I did not know. That spaceappeal.org, 5gspaceappeal.org, you can either just choose to sign it, or you can read more about it, and it's very enlightening and fully referenced. I mean, you could spend a long time there if you wanted to actually check out everything. I came across this as well in my preparation for this. So it's stopglobalwifi.org. That is a short document that explains that planned global Wi-Fi from space will destroy ozone layer, worsen climate change, and threaten life on Earth. Because basically, in order for them to, we've got a space race happening at the moment for 5G, where they are launching, Richard tells me often, who's they? Who's they? But you've got SpaceX and Elon Musk's lot, we've got Amazon on, we've got Boeing, at least 13 or more companies who are racing to get satellites into the ionosphere to be able to beam 5G down on us to cover town and country worldwide. This is where we need to start tapping, because it's not only going to be many small cells, mobile masts that are put outside our houses, outside our offices, they're basically all our new street lights are already they've been getting ready for 5G. So the 5G antennas will be on the street lights. They're going under pavement. I can't speak. Under, what do you call it? Manhole covers. You won't be able to see them, but they are beam forming. It'll just be waves crisscrossing. This is millimeter technology. We may not be there yet. I want to say that before we all start panicking, because it will cover a vast spectrum, including the low spectrum that the mobile masts are already using with 3G and 4G. But there will be the higher frequencies, which are also, weather forecasters are saying there's a particular band that the US auctioned off this year, I think, that will interfere with their ability to forecast storms. And very high frequencies where it'll be the skin and certain internal organs that will be mostly affected. And this is millimeter waves is what the crowd control technology is being used for currently. I mean, because they send a beam and it has a burning sensation on the skin enough that somebody does not want to go any further. It's the same waveform. So 5G, for many reasons, is not good, and we do need to educate ourselves about it. And the bad news on it is that we don't yet have meters that we can just get hold of like I have here. Even this costs £400, but there is a meter to measure 5G, but it's in the thousands. So right now we could all go around arming ourselves, finding out what's radiating. Well and good for what we've got right now, but when it comes to 5G, these things will not pick that up. So I really strongly encourage anybody who is listening to this to go to that 5gspaceappeal.org and sign the petition. It's very well put together, and the person who compiled it is trying to talk to the leaders of these companies trying to put the satellites up in space. When I say try, I mean it started, and we're talking thousands every month. And when they have a certain number in the hundreds of sorry, it's not thousands, they will want to put thousands up there. When they've got, it's different for different companies, but say 400 and something, they will switch the 5G on from these satellites coming down. Each satellite that goes up is causing, according to this information, is causing a hole in the ozone layer. And so on many levels, we need to stop this happening if we can. And we tap. So we've gone over. I'm very happy to stop here and honour the time. Or if anybody wants to go to 9 o'clock and do a little a tap on this, I'd be very happy to do that. And I won't take offence if you don't want to. What's the feeling? Yes, I haven't seen the chat at all. Ooh, Shasha, have you been... I haven't looked at the chat at all. I don't know how to. Shall I stop share and come back? Ah, hello, right. A good subject for the MCC, Andy. Yes, yes, I would love to practice with the MCC.
I need to go in a minute, Becca.
All right. Okay. Well, I think we'll leave it there and we'll tap on it another day.
Maybe do another one, and we can do just, once people have watched this,
yeah,
a group of people have watched it, then maybe in a couple of weeks, maybe do another showcase and we'll do the tapping or do an MCC.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much for those of you who've joined in, and Shasha, thank you for helping me. Have I missed anything in the chat that I need to address before we go?
Don't think so.
No. All right.
It's been very informative, thank you. On the island we don't have 5G yet. We're trying to stop smart meters, and I'm in a group of people, we're trying to do that as well, and I'm actually creating some tapping groups for environmental things on the island as well.
Brilliant. So, where are you, Andy?
I'm on the Isle of Man.
Ah, okay.
So, we've got our own little government and everything, so we're just trying to, there's quite a good therapy community here, and we're trying to join forces to try and, stop things happening.
Brilliant. Well done you. There's a group which I was invited to, a Facebook group, Stop 5G UK, but I have to say it's, you don't want to, it sucks you in and you don't really want to spend a lot of time there. But the woman there, I think she has put together that's how I found the CIA document. And she can refer people to their local Stop 5G group. And so that is very useful for Glastonbury, although not for the festival, but people are having results. And I have to say, that on the television and radio we will not hear about this because the BBC are actually in on this too. They are trialling 5G as we speak on Orkney because they want to be able to broadcast their radio and TV through 5G to all remote areas. So I'm afraid to say it's not mainstream information. You're not going to find it there. Same with the smart meters. Anyway, can I just check in with you before we go? Because Phil was a bit of a downer. Could you give me one word for how you're feeling right now?
I feel that it's hopeless. But I'm beginning to come to terms with that. It's not just that it's 5G. If it's not 5G, it's that we're killing all the insects. If it's not that, it's that we're doing nuclear. I think we're coming to the end of human existence on this planet.
It's great, isn't it?
To turn things back.
So my feeling on this, I totally understand that perspective, and I'm also I am hopeful, and I know that other people engaging in this are hopeful too. In that, I really get a sense that there's we wanted a systems change. People voted Trump in, they wanted something different, and they might vote Boris in, I don't know. They wanted something different. I just see there is a movement afoot, and maybe it's not big enough to do anything right now, but and there are dark forces at play, there's no question. But I really feel like there's more and more people are waking up. And I didn't know anything about this 3 years ago, less. I didn't even know what a smart meter was. And that was in November. And by the January, it was being, rolled out in the street where I lived, where I was, I did my best to try and wake people up. And I think I was shocked that people didn't want to know. They're all so busy in their lives and didn't want to know. And I thought, I'm killing myself here trying to actually research this and give you the information and put notices up, but and you don't even want to know. And I understand it's overwhelming, but I think that's where if we could bring the tapping in, and if we can raise the vibration, I think we have to take heart that there are. I think the scales are falling from our eyes in so many ways, that we are beginning to wake up, and a realization that we're never going to get it top down. And so there's a grassroots movement.
We're the problem.
We are the problem, and that's why
we are the problem on this planet. The obvious solution is our extinction, frankly.
In it were, yeah.
We want this incredibly beautiful place that has created life. If you think of all the other planets we know about, they don't have this beauty on them. We are the problem.
And
Too many of us.
for every problem there's a solution. For every problem there's a solution, wasn't that Einstein? And I think we can it's definitely one for a lot more MCC.
And some future printing as well may help.
Yes. So, okay, so Shasha is in overwhelm and feeling like it's the end of the planet and end of us. Andy, how
it doesn't overwhelm me anymore. I'm coming to a place of feeling that this is the plan, that this is how it's meant to roll out. But then I'm a lot older than either of you, I think. So, and I don't have children, I haven't got grandchildren, so I think that makes a difference in how people feel about what's happening in the world.
I don't have children or grandchildren, but I care about the bees and being a horticulturalist as well.
I do too.
It's nature, and it's not just children. I've got friends with children and grandchildren and things, but I think it's just, to me, it's just we do what we can. Every little bit helps, and if we can come together and just do that little bit, But I mean, the difficulty is you're almost told you have to have a smartphone. You're told you have to have a Wi-Fi. My mum and dad are struggling because they don't have a broadband or Wi-Fi or anything. And if they want to check their bank accounts, they've got to go online and all this. And they're almost being forced into it. And they're in fear now because it's like they feel they're not going to be able to access their money because they don't have the internet. So it's all that as well. It's, I got a letter from my bank the other day saying, I've got to sign on online to do something, but I don't want to go online to use my bank account. I like to go into the bank. I like to speak to people. Well, these people haven't realised they're going to lose their jobs because nobody will be needed in the bank. It's a bit like these self-service tills. People encouraging you to use them, but then there's got to be no till staff. And I like that human interaction. We're going on a tangent now.
I think maybe we have to go down this road a certain way before we realise actually this is just not the way to be. And some of us can come to that realisation sooner than others. But I really want to leave it with a distinction between internet and Wi-Fi, and also to make it really clear that I'm not anti-progress, and I'm not anti-technology. I'm technophobe, but I'm doing my best to learn it. But here we are, and I'm not on Wi-Fi, and I don't have very much signal around and about. That's a conscious move that I've made. I'm lucky that I can do that. But we can still have this interaction through this incredible technology, and the internet can be harnessed for good and for amazing purposes. I think this does not replace looking somebody right in the eye and touching them, but it's a wonderful tool, and it can be safely. And even if people still need Wi-Fi for certain things, to get familiar with the settings and be able to know when you can turn it off and on, can drastically reduce your exposure, and that will be needed the more we have exposures beyond our control.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it on that note.
Lovely.
Thank you.
It's been very informative. Thank you.
Definitely.
All right.
You've done so much work on it.
Yeah, well done.
I hope you have another chance to present some of the aspects more in depth. Some people want to know. Yeah, and do some tapping too. Be great.
Yeah.
Well, I'm here as a resource if anybody does want to ask any more questions, or I can signpost you to more information. Just reach out.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.